Canada and the United States. So they're seeing, we're all seeing elevation in inflation, especially for the G7 countries. The US has seen actually the highest 5.1% annual growth for its CPI in August, the highest of any of the advanced economies. Canada followed the US with 4.1% growth over the same period, the second highest. Despite the news bias towards elevated inflation, this isn't a global story. Some advanced economies in the group are even fighting off deflation. And there was an interesting article about inflation. What is it? Does it stay? Is it real? You know, all that good stuff. But it's interesting to know what's been happening. And an article came out from Better Dwelling that I'm actually going to pretty much quote right here because it's such an interesting, literally it just came out yesterday. Canadian real estate prices increased so fast that they eliminated the benefit of our low interest rates. So Canadians were given a boost to affordability when rates were cut at the start of the pandemic. The Bank of Canada's Housing Affordability Index fell to the most affordable level in over a decade. By cutting interest costs, households can finance debt more cheaply, improving affordability. It also happens to increase demand, though, pushing home prices higher. If left for too long, the benefits of low interest rates are outweighed by higher prices. Canadian real estate is now way past that point. Housing Affordability Index, so the Housing Affordability Index in the Bank of Canada's official affordability measure. It looks at the share of disposable income required to service the cost of housing. As the index rises, people need to spend more of their income to service a mortgage. This means affordability is on the decline. When the index falls, it means people are spending less on their housing costs. This means affordability is improving. Really complicated stuff, you know? So Canadian housing affordability is the worst it's been in over a decade. Households need to spend the largest share of income to carry a mortgage in well over a decade. So the share reached 36.3% of income in Q2 of 2021. That's up from 34.7% in the previous quarter. In other words, over a third of income is now needed to service a typical mortgage across the country. Not just in Toronto or Vancouver, but the national level. When the pandemic first started, rates were slashed greatly, improving affordability. The index fell to 30%, over 6 points lower than it stands today. Things are deteriorating so fast, the index jumped by nearly 2 points in just the most recent quarter. Canada went from having the most affordable real estate in over a decade to the least in the span of literally 12 months. So how high is it enough to the sky? So the index has now reached the highest level in over a decade, clearing all but a few quarters in the past two. Only 3 quarters over this period have been higher. So from the Q3 of 2007 to Q1 of 2008, back then the overnight rate was 17 times higher, meaning a lot more interest was being paid. Low rates make debt more affordable, but increase the demand. And that's the issue we're having right now. The biggest benefit of low interest rates is a lower cost to carry the debt. In a perfect world, you pay the same purchase price for a house, but less in interest. When you do it in a bubble, people think of the money saved as extra money to bid up prices. It's a lot easier to push prices higher than the bank tells people they can afford to spend more. It's also a lot easier for mom and dad to borrow their home equity and provide help with the down payment. So, I mean, after all, it's cheap, right? It's like almost free money, so why wouldn't you borrow? But the benefit of cheap debt has been lost to increased demand. Unfortunately, cutting interest rates also means stimulating demand. They're often used during periods of low consumption to pull consumers forward. Canadian real estate sales were strong before the pandemic with solid price growth. When the pandemic started, slashing rates provided a huge boost to affordability. It also created so much excess demand, rising prices consumed any benefit. Slashing rates further might seem like a solution, but would ultimately make things worse, especially in an environment where inflation is already spiraling out of control. So that is the news report as of yesterday came out, and I thought it was very well put together and said. So please, everyone, come back after the break to hear about our Fraser Valley real estate stats that just came out.